Mendami seems like a nice guy, and I congratulate him on an extraordinary political achievement. But before the whole left side of the country catches socialism fever, let's listen to the other big winner in last Tuesday's election, Virginia Governor-elect Abigail Spanberger, who, before the 24 election, said things like, if the party didn't shift to the center, we will get torn apart. And we need to never use the word socialist or socialism ever again. Well, she was right, but they didn't listen. Typical, am I right, ladies? One wing is saying don't ever use the word socialist again, and one is saying,
I am a democratic socialist.
Clear, huh? So how do we decide who's right? Well, it turns out we don't really have to flip a coin. We have the evidence. In 2024, 13 Democrats won. In districts, Trump also won. All moderates.
Bill Maher is going hard on the Democratic Socialists, and it is really harsh. The outspoken TV host attacked the group, saying they are pushing the party in a risky socialist direction, while also trying to change America into a fully socialist country. The criticism was strong, sharp, and hard to ignore. So hit the subscribe button and let's get into it.
Democratic socialism is like a dating profile. Things look great until you meet up in the real world. For example, Bernie Sanders, his big thing was always bringing single-payer health care to our country of 340 million. But when liberal, tie-dyed Vermont tried to do it for a population of 626,000, it collapsed like that poor in the Oval Office last week. Bernie, AOC, Mandani are not Democrats. They'll be the first to tell you that. They're Democratic Socialists, and that's a very different thing, and I don't think people know that yet.
Maher did not hold back. He started by going straight at Bernie Sanders, one of the biggest supporters of democratic socialism. Sanders has for a long time pushed for a single-payer healthcare system, calling it a fix for America's broken system. But Maher pointed to a real example. Vermont, a very democratic state, where this idea should have worked well. Instead, it fell apart on its own. Too expensive, too hard to manage, and in the end, not able to last. To Maher, that failure was not just a small local mistake. It was a warning sign. He said that democratic socialism sounds really good in theory, wrapped in promises of fairness and care for everyone, but it breaks down when it meets real economic facts. It is the kind of idea that gets applause in speeches, but struggles to work in real life. And in Maher's view, that gap between big ideas and real results shows a deeper problem in the whole movement.
And this is against why people sometimes, I think, question some of what you're saying. This is a survey, student loan forgiveness recipients. 73% of applicants say they are likely to spend their extra money on non-essential, including vacations, smartphone, drugs, and alcohol. They admitted that to the pollster.
Who is this pollster?
NBC News. 52% they are very likely to buy new clothing. 46% they would use the money for vacation and eat out at restaurants. This is why people have a thing about, I would never call it free money, like I said.
When Bernie Sanders is faced with tough and uncomfortable facts, Maher says his first reaction is often to question where the facts came from. Now, asking for sources is not always wrong. It is part of a serious discussion. But Maher's point goes deeper. He says those sources often show what real Americans are already saying openly. When given a choice, they still prefer capitalism over socialism. In his view, many voters do not believe in big promises of government-run systems because they like flexibility, rewards for effort, and control over their own money. Maher also suggests that when people are given free money without a clear system, it can sometimes be used in a poor way, focusing on short-term needs instead of long-term growth or progress. That, he says, is where theory clashes with human behavior. And that is why, even with all the talk, most people are still unsure about fully accepting socialist policies.
I know the kids think that stuff that happened before their appearance on the planet didn't really happen, but it did. We've run this experiment many times, and the results are always obvious. Here's capitalist South Korea at night from space. Here's socialist North Korea. Yeah. In 1990, Venezuela was wealthier than Poland. But then Poland finally free of Soviet-style economics, went all in on capitalism. And now their economy is as big as Japan. And people there have high wages, low inflation, cars, vacations, homes. Meanwhile, Venezuela traded capitalism for Hugo Chavez's socialism for the 21st century, which turned out to be like socialism in the last century or any century, a mess. It turned one of Latin America's richest countries into one of its poorest.
Here, Maher moves from criticism to a warning, saying socialism is not just some new idea. It has been tried many times with worrying results. He points to countries like Venezuela, Cuba, and North Korea as modern examples where strong government control has come with serious economic problems, shortages, and less personal freedom. In Venezuela, once one of the richest countries in Latin America, poor economic decisions and too much state control helped cause extreme inflation and collapse. Meanwhile, Cuba still deals with slow growth, debt, and ongoing shortages under a government-heavy system. North Korea, on the other hand, is one of the most tightly controlled economies in the world, with very strict limits on business and personal choice. Maher's main point is simple. When ideas meet reality, the results are often much messier than promised. And he says this is a pattern Americans should not ignore.
I don't think people realize we already have a lot of socialism. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, unemployment insurance, food stamps, veterans benefits, Pell Grants, COVID-era payments, farm subsidies, disability payments, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, corporate bailouts, and the jobs program that is building weapons the Pentagon doesn't even want. All that is socialism, much of it appropriate to soften the edges of capitalism. But the DSA are radicals about this concept, and radical economic policy is always ineluctably married to radical social policy. Their platform, for example, calls for completely open borders. They're for what Biden was doing, but more.
Here, Maher shifts to a more balanced point, saying that while America is mainly capitalist, it already has some social safety nets mixed in to reduce the harder parts of the system, things like public programs and basic support that stop people from falling too far behind. But he warns that balance is important. Going too far toward full democratic socialism, in his view, could weaken the system that supports innovation, productivity, and personal drive. Maher describes a strong picture of what he thinks that change might look like: looser border control that could affect national security, more government control over resources, and a system where people have fewer choices. In that kind of situation, he says shortages could happen more often, and daily life might mean accepting less, whether it's food choices or basic items. He even talks about the image of long lines under the hot sun, waiting for basics like bread and milk, as a warning of what can happen when supply cannot meet demand.